What's up, everybody? Welcome back. Face Off Sports Network. I'm Anthony Servino here with Pete Terranova. We're going to give you our three top quarterback busts based on ADP. We're going to start with Joe Burrow. And Joe Burrow, we know who Joe Burrow is. He's an excellent NFL quarterback, but being an excellent NFL quarterback doesn't always correlate to fantasy football production. If you look at Joe Burrow's body of work, he really has had only one big year back in 2022 where he finished as a quarterback 4 in fantasy points per game. 2021, quarterback 10 in that category. His rookie season, quarterback 18. And then obviously last year, injury-plagued quarterback 21. Speaking of injuries, not only his rookie year, but last year he dealt with them. He always seems to enter the season with an injury as well, even if he doesn't miss time. I think it was 2 years ago he had that. He had his appendix taken out going into the season. So Joe Burrow, you always have to watch out with injuries. So what else is going on with Joe Burrow that could cause him to wreck your fantasy football team? Well, we have Jamar Chase, we have T. Higgins, both due for new contracts. If anybody's going to hold out, which I don't think is going to happen, but we still have to put that in our analysis, I do think there's a shot that T. Higgins tries to hold out. Tyler Boyd, he's in Tennessee. You want to know who else is in Tennessee? Brian Callahan, Burrow's offensive coordinator. Now, they did bring in an offensive coordinator. They promoted him in-house, so it's probably going to be a similar system, a familiar face for Joe Burrow, but that is still a change. Another change that we are looking at is the loss of Joe Mixon. Joe Mixon really balanced this offense out. And what are they turning to? Well, Chase Brown, we know, is a pretty good receiver out of the backfield. We really don't know much with a small sample size of work. Then they bring in Zach Moss, and I think Zach Moss, as great as he was last year with the Colts, he regressed towards the end of the season. He wasn't great in Buffalo. Significant downgrade in run blocking O-line, and I think he's going to be one of the bigger busts at running back, but this is another story for another day. So a lot of changes here for Joe Burrow, including, like I said, we have to watch out for injuries. Jamar Chase dealt with some injuries. We have Higgins dealing with the holdout potential and potentially injuries. So I'm not anti-Joe Burrow. I think Joe Burrow, if you ask me, who do I want to go win a football game not named Patrick Mahomes? I'm probably taking Joe Burrow. But when it comes to fantasy football, if you look at his ADP on Sleeper right now, he's going as a quarterback 7 and in Superflex to quarterback 6. I'd rather wait and go get guys like Dak Prescott, Kyler Murray, or even guys like Kirk Cousins who are going super late. Pete?
Yeah, I mean, when I'm looking at quarterback and Joe Burrow is quarterback 6 off the board right now, and I want a guy that has some rushing upside. And unfortunately, Joe Burrow doesn't really provide that. I think you're drafting him as quarterback 6, but you're drafting him at his ceiling, and that's the problem. I don't know how much room he has to move up from the quarterback 6. And rushing stats. In 2022, he had 259 rushing yards, 5 touchdowns, and he finished as quarterback 4, but that's not the norm for him, right? In 2021, he had 118 rushing yards in 16 games. In 2020, his season was cut short, and he had 142 rushing yards. 5 touchdowns is a lot, and, he had the most rushing yards of his career. He's dealt with health injuries. I don't see him running nearly as much. And when you lose Joe Mixon, who's a safety valve out of the backfield, people forget how, that keeps the offense going, being able to dump the ball off to the running back, have him go get some yards and get a first down and just keep the drive alive. I don't really know what to expect from this backfield. Chase Brown did provide some receiving upside, and Zach Moss revived his career a little bit in Indianapolis, but I just don't really love him at this price when you can get guys like Christian Kirk, Jaden Reed, who I'm high on both of them this season. So at this price tag, if I'm taking a quarterback super high, I want a guy that's going to have a chance to finish in the top 5 and possibly even the top 3, and I just don't know if Burrow provides that kind of upside for me.
Our next quarterback we're going to talk about, and this is going to be a little bit controversial, Jordan Love. And Jordan Love last year, he was sensational. But if you remember early on, it wasn't all that great. Some people were calling for his jobs. He didn't look great on film, and then he started taking off. Now, Jordan Love on paper, we look at those numbers: quarterback 5 fantasy points per game, quarterback 5 overall. A few things I have here. Now, the Packers, they revamped their running back room. They brought in Josh Jacobs, who's really more of a bell cow every down back than Aaron Jones. Aaron Jones is an excellent running back, but I think Josh Jacobs can handle a lot more of that in between the tackles work. They also retained A.J. Dillon. They drafted one of the better rookie running backs coming out. So this tells me, and we know this, you paid attention, even when they had future Hall of Famer Aaron Rodgers, LaFleur likes to run the football, and he likes an efficient passing game. So are we going to get the red zone attempts? Well, Love was number 2 in red zone attempts at quarterback. He was number 3 in deep ball attempts and number 5 in pass attempts. That is uncharacteristic of a LaFleur offense dating back to the Aaron Rodgers days. Now, even going further, and Pete will dive even further into this, efficiency-wise, Jordan Love wasn't the most efficient quarterback on the field. And we all love his receivers, but let's face it, he doesn't have an alpha. He doesn't have that Devontae Adams. To me, his receiving room, they're a bunch of 2s and 3s. There's no real receiver to emerge. So if the enemy defensive coordinators get wise to this offense, they start taking out the top receiver, whoever that is that week. Can Jordan Love recover from that, Pete?
Yeah, it's something with Jordan Love. It just didn't seem right to begin the year. I think one thing about the Packers is they didn't really have the best defense in football last year. And so I think that was part of the reason why, they were in a lot of higher scoring games. I don't think that defense is going to take a step back. I actually see them taking a step forward this year. In terms of his efficiency metrics, I mean, he was 23rd in his accuracy rating. He was 20th in clean pocket percentage, and 27th in clean pocket accuracy. I think they upgraded this offensive line this season, and so he should be playing from a much more clean pocket, and the defense should be better. So I'm gonna think that they're going to be in less high-scoring games. Keep in mind, they were also 21st in passing volume last season. So, this is not a team that really wants to throw the football nearly as much. And I just don't see him supporting this price tag. It's not a high price tag compared to the other guys that we're talking about here, but I just don't see him finishing as the quarterback 5 in fantasy points per game. I think that's a little inflated due to just a lot of injuries that we saw across the board at the position last season. So I'd probably fade Jordan Love. You have a lot of better quarterbacks in just better offenses, maybe not better quarterbacks, but you can get Brock Purdy, you can get Tua, you can get Jared Goff, who are 3 quarterbacks in the best offenses in football a couple rounds back. And I think I'd rather take a swing on one of those guys and save my premium draft capital in the higher rounds for just better skill position players rather than reaching on Jordan Love at that price.
Yeah, like this is the year where if you're not paying up for one of the elite quarterbacks, I'm waiting. Like I'll wait. Like once we get after like Dak and maybe even Kyler, like we get to Jordan Love, even Brock Purdy and Caleb Williams. Like I'll wait for Jared Goff, quarterback 15. We know what he did last year, and we know what he can do in this offense. And oh, by the way, they're getting Jameson Williams back. Oh, wait, Trevor Lawrence, he could take a step up. Kirk Cousins, I absolutely love this Falcons offense. So, and even Aaron Rodgers, quarterback 20 off the board. I already know what he can do. He just needs to stay healthy. So before we go on to our final quarterback, I do want to bring this up for anybody who forgot what a LaFleur offense looks like, because I think Pete hit the nail on the head. The defense wasn't good. Normally the Packers defense is good and they can run more. That's what LaFleur wants to do. I'll keep pounding that home. Jordan Love last year, 5th in pass attempts, 3rd in deep ball attempts, 2nd in red zone attempts. Aaron Rodgers, let's go back to his last 3 years with LaFleur. He was 10th in pass attempts, 2nd deep ball attempts, 9th in red zone attempts. Let's go back to 2021. Rodgers was 12th, 11th, and 3rd. And then 2020, 13th, 3rd, and 7th. So if you see, they were never throwing this much. And if this defense takes that step forward like it should, and they use Josh Jacobs the way that they should and what they signed him for, we're going to see a regression in opportunities for Jordan Love. And again, Jordan Love, he was not efficient. 23rd in accuracy rating, 28th in true completion percentage, 16th in deep ball completion percentage, 30th in pressure completion percentage, 15th in red zone completion percentage, and 20th out of a clean pocket. What he did well is a play action. Where I'm going here is if he's not throwing that much and he doesn't improve in his efficiency, then how are those numbers going to be sustained? Now, let's go to our final quarterback, and this guy's super popular all off season long, and I get why. People love the rookies, and C.J. Stroud had an amazing rookie year last year. Now they bring in Stephon Diggs, another receiving weapon for C.J. Stroud. He's only going to get better, right? I would pump the brakes there. C.J. Stroud, 7th in fantasy points per game, but he was a quarterback 11 overall. What's going to be different about this offense? Well, this offense, they were 12th in team running plays per game. Do you remember their backfield last year? Devin Singletary and Dameon Pierce? It was terrible. They went and got Joe Mixon. So one of the reasons why we are down on Joe Burrow is because, well, he lost that balance, that stability of Joe Mixon. Now C.J. Stroud gets it. And to me, they're going to run the football more. And if they're going to run the football more, there's going to be fewer pass attempts. And I get it. Yeah, well, then why did they bring in Stephon Diggs? This team is trying to challenge for a Super Bowl. They're not trying to win you fantasy football championships. So they really got Stephon Diggs as maybe protection because Nico Collins is probably going to miss games, right? That's what he normally does. And Tank Dell's coming off the injury. Stephon Diggs is veteran insurance policy. He's on a 1-year deal, not in a long-term deal. That tells me they're going to chase the big one and trying to chase Mahomes and the Chiefs. I like C.J. Stroud. This is another scenario like Burrow. I think he's going to be a better NFL quarterback than he will a fantasy football quarterback. Another guy, there's some issues with completion percentage here. C.J. Stroud, 24th in accuracy rating, 30th in true completion percentage, 28th at a play action, 19th out of a clean pocket. You can't throw for him a clean pocket like Jordan Love and now C.J. Stroud. We're going to have some issues. So C.J. Stroud is another one I'm avoiding at his current cost.
Yeah, I think, with C.J. Stroud, he's going off the board extremely high. And again, it's the same argument with Joe Burrow. I mean, you're paying up for a guy at his ceiling here, and he doesn't run the ball. I mean, last year he had 167 rushing yards, 8.2 yards per attempt. And, this is an offense, and this is just a coaching staff that wants to play defense. They upgraded their defense. Yes, they've made some additions on both sides of the ball, but DeMeco Ryans is a defensive-minded head coach. It's the same thing with like Vic Fangio when his days in Denver and his days everywhere else. Like as a Broncos fan, he wants his young quarterback to be protected. He doesn't want Stroud to go out there and sling the ball all over the yard. They upgraded the weapons because, when it comes time for the prime time in the playoffs, yeah, you need those weapons and you're going to have to throw the football more most likely. But this is not a team that wants to drop back and throw the ball 35 to 45 times a game. And they also have the 11th hardest strength of schedule. So that's going to be a test for Stroud, and he's in a division that's only been getting better. So I don't like the price tag, especially with the rushing upside being very minimal. And I just don't see him sustaining what he did last year. And keep in mind, similar to what we talked about before, these quarterbacks and their fantasy finishes, not points per game, but fantasy finishes, are inflated due to we lost a lot of big guys to injury last year. Rodgers didn't play. Burrow was down for a lot of games.
Anthony Richardson.
Kirk Cousins was crushing it before
Daniel Jones.
Daniel Jones. So all jokes aside, we really like CJ Stroud. I like him. I like the trajectory that he's on. I'm just not super high on him for fantasy this year. And I would avoid him at his cost right now.
Yeah, before we wrap up, one more little nugget on CJ Stroud. He only threw for more than 2 touchdowns in a game in the regular season one time. So if you go down, you see passing touchdown stat. If you don't believe me, go look. He had the one game where he threw for, I believe, 5 against Tampa in week 9. Everything else, 2, 0, 1. You'd have to go to week 19, which is the playoffs, to find the next time he threw for more than 2 touchdowns, where he threw it 3 against Cleveland. And I think Pete, wrapping this up, said it really well. A lot of these quarterback finishes, they're kind of a mirage because of all the top-end quarterbacks who did not play, who were injured last season. So keep that in mind when you're looking at fantasy finishes. Try to keep in mind the players who were not there and who would normally finish up top. This is another great episode covering quarterback busts this time. We'll be dropping content like this all off-season and season long. And, of course, coming with you with our live stream episode podcast where we do answer all of your fantasy football questions when you bring them. For Pete and myself, this is the Face Off Sports Network. If you want to win, you have to tune in, and we'll see you next time.